in our courses component .html, we are going to come in and we are going to start to build this out. And so what I want to do here is attach a form, and we're going to put this around because, so the one thing is with a material card is you have your content and then you have your actions. And we're going to wrap this entire thing inside of a form. So the form body is going to go inside of the content, and then the actions themselves are going to go inside the actions section of the card. And from here, let's go ahead and we're going to go form equals ng form. And let's go and just so we can see some of this in action, we'll get our pre and we'll just go form not value JSON, and I'm going to duplicate this and we'll go valid. And I'm not quite for sure what's going to happen because there's nothing in here, but it's a good. No directives found with export as ng form. What do you think that could be? Let me check. It's like I'm like a prophet, like I'm a minor prophet. Like I'm over here saying, everybody needs to be real careful. Well, there you have it. We just organize imports just because I'm obsessive compulsive. All right. Better. So make sure you import your forms module. And we have a form. We don't have any input fields. It's not doing much. So let's go back into our code here and let's start to build this out. So I'm going to type one of these out, and we will then, I might copy paste the rest of them or some of them, just because typing is not that interesting. I'm going to give this a class of full width, and we're going to add an input, and from here we're going to add in mat input here. We're going to give this a placeholder of title, and I'm going to do something that is going to blow up, but let's do it anyways. Current course title. And so there's a couple things that is problematic about what I've done up to this point, but YOLO. Let's see what's going on here. So current course, that's super easy. So let me go back here. Let's try this again. So this is what happened last time. So you can do a couple things here that I think are okay. The first one is, I'm pretty sure I can put a safe navigation operator in here. Empty expressions are not allowed. Okay? So one of the things that I will say about Angular 13 versus its predecessors is that it is a lot more strict. So what I'm going to do here is they're forcing my hand to solve a problem that I was going to solve a little bit later, but I'll do it now. That when I have a form that I'm using to either create or update something, because you absolutely can use the same form, that when I have something selected, something, let's say a chorus, then I bind that form to the chorus. But if it's empty, what I want is to essentially bind it to an empty course object that gets populated so that when I save it, it just passes it down the road, if you will. So from here, what I am going to do, I feel like this is a really good time to generate an interface for this. So fortunately, this is from previously when I did this. So NGG, interface, common models course. And so anytime, this is generally one of the first things I do when I'm building something out, is I will actually build out the interfaces first, and then everything else is able to be kind of inferred or generated off of that. So let's just double check. Looks good. And so just let it be known for the record that in this particular module, I generated an interface so that we could see it. So now we'll go to common here, and let me just look at this real quick. ID, title, description, percent complete. So ID should actually always be a string. The reason being is because numbers, you can only have so many variations of them, like really 0 through 9. Whereas with alphanumeric strings, you can have a ton. I do think it's funny that I put that as a, in quotes, as a string. All right. It's like I was doing an object literal for a second. Okay. We'll go with description is a string. Percent complete is a number. And our favorite is going to be a Boolean. All right. There we go. I'm going to save this. Now, if we go back into our courses, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, outside of the class itself, I'm going to go empty course, and I'm going to type this as a course. So you can see now that I've imported the interface, and ID is going to be null. I'll address this in just a second. This is why. So now what we should see is that it's declared, it's never read, as well as we're missing a bunch of properties. So title is just going to be an empty string, description, also an empty string, percent complete is going to be 0, and favorite is going to be false. All right. So now what I can do is I can set selected course to empty course. And so now when I come back into this, what you'll see here is that everything is hopefully kosher. Let me check. All right. So mostly kosher. This is the other piece. So if ngModel is used within a form tag, either the name attribute must be set or the form control must be defined as standalone. which that's not what we want to do. But what we want to do is we need a way to attach ngModel to the top level form control. And so this is what this is complaining about. And so if we go back in here, this is also going to save you a bunch of pain, that if you're attaching ngModel to an input, that you also need to add a name attribute to it, like so. And I think this should work. And lo and behold, what do you know? That absolutely nothing is happening, which is good. So now, when I select this, you can see here that we populated the title, and this became, or the value of the form control object became instantly populated. Now, if I cancel it, I would imagine that, here we go. So when I tried to set it to null, that was not good. So this is where things get, there's just a few extra steps to do this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create one more method, and I'm going to, I'll just do this down here. I'm going to call this just reset. The selected course, or rather I can do, let's try this. I'm going to essentially just create a copy of the empty course. There we go. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking this object, I'm just creating a new copy of it, and I'm setting that as the selected course. JavaScript, as you know, is, unless it's a primitive value, it's passed by reference, which can create some interesting things, especially when you're binding to the same property. So this is, if you ever want to talk about the evils of shared mutable state, this is a really easy way to demonstrate that. So what I'm doing instead is I'm making this immutable by, or rather it's still mutable, but I'm essentially breaking that something shared and mutable. What you need to do is either make it not mutable or not shared. So in this case, I'm calling this select course, but I'm passing in a copy of empty course. And before I forget, what I need to do now is when I call this, I just need to call reset. So we'll go here, back to this, select this, and if I click cancel, you can see now I was able to reset it, and hopefully everything is a-okay. And so let me add in one more property here, and then let me do one more property, and then we will go on to kind of the next portion of this, and I'm going to issue a challenge, and we will go from there. So in this case, description, and the difference is this one is not required. And so if we go here, and notice that when I started to type this in, it filled this in, but it immediately went to being valid because this is required. And now that it's out, you can see that if I select this, what we should see somewhere in here is, yes, so you can see here, right down here, you have this ng invalid, as well as it's saying that it's dirty and it's been touched. That doesn't sound very nice. What are we talking about? All right, so just refresh this and we'll select. There we go. Valid. And as I type this in, you can see here that it's also filling it out here. So there we go. Now, we're going to talk about this when we get into component-driven architecture. But remember what I said about shared mutable state. So shared state is okay. Mutable state is okay. But shared mutable state is the devil's playground. And let me show you why. So you'll see here, I've selected Angular 13 fundamentals. And what do you think happens when I go in and I update this title? Did you notice that I am mutating this title and it's updating in 3 other places on the page? So this is not good. The reason being is, what if I started typing this in and I'm like, you know what? I don't really want to do this. Well, I have no way to undo this because I've already mutated the data structure. And so the question is, how do I solve this? What do I do?